"Ma'am, step away from the purse." The words sliced through the air like a blade. Sharp, cold, accusatory. Maya Brooks froze. She had just picked up a dark green leather clutch from the display table at the Coach store inside Atlantic Grand Plaza, one of Atlanta's most upscale shopping centers. She admired its stitching, the craftsmanship, the weight of it. A quiet moment of appreciation. Until that voice came. "I said put it down. Now." Across the floor, the store manager, a woman in her 50s with frosted blonde hair, a tight designer blazer, and a look that said, "I run this place," stormed toward her. Sharon Fielding, known for keeping order in her store. In an instant, all eyes turned. Customers, associates, a teenage girl holding a caramel frappuccino, a middle-aged man on FaceTime with his wife. Every head swiveled toward Maya. She was the only black woman in the store. The manager didn't ask questions, didn't inquire, didn't smile. She reached out and snatched the clutch from Maya's hand. Then, the moment that changed everything. Slap. Open-handed. Across Maya's face. The entire store fell into stunned silence. The kind of silence you only hear in courtrooms or funerals or after gunshots. A gasp rippled through the room. Phones went up. Cameras started rolling. The teenage girl dropped her drink. Caught red-handed, Sharon hissed. "Security, call the police." She was about to steal it. "I've seen her kind before." Maya didn't say a word. Not yet. Her cheeks burned. Not just from the slap, but from the weight of every gaze, every whispered word. From the centuries of women like her, misunderstood, mislabeled, mistreated, in places just like this. She could have shouted, could have cursed, could have struck back. But instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a sleek, matte black phone. Her voice, calm and deliberate, broke the silence. "Activate Plan Echo." That's when the glass doors of the Coach store slid open again, and a woman in a navy suit stepped inside. Then a man with an earpiece. Then 3 more. Maya Brooks wasn't here to shop. She was here to watch. And now, the woman who slapped her was about to find out. She had just assaulted the billionaire who owns the entire mall. Maya Brooks didn't look like a billionaire. Not in that moment, anyway. She wasn't wearing Gucci pumps or a Balenciaga coat. No entourage. No flashy jewelry. Just a simple slate gray hoodie, slim-fit jeans, clean white sneakers, and a $12 canvas tote bag that said, "Support small business." Her curls were tied back into a loose bun, and her face, beautiful, composed but bare of makeup, carried the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. But Maya had already proven everything. At 32, she was the founder and CEO of Brooks Capital, one of the fastest-growing private equity firms in the Southeast. She had taken a $25,000 inheritance from her grandmother, who used to clean hotel rooms for a living, and turned it into a $2.7 billion portfolio spanning real estate, tech, retail, and logistics. Maya didn't just invest in companies. She transformed them, cleaned out the rot, hired women and people of color for leadership roles, raised wages, streamlined operations. Her approach wasn't just moral, it was profitable. But none of that mattered today. Today she was just another shopper. Because that's how she wanted it. She was there on a quiet Thursday morning, walking through Atlantic Grand Plaza, a massive, newly renovated mall her firm had purchased just 6 months earlier. On paper, she wasn't the owner. Not directly. The paperwork flowed through 3 holding companies and a trust, all designed to keep her name out of day-to-day operations. But make no mistake, Maya owned it all. And she wasn't there to shop. She was there to watch. She'd received a private report a few days earlier from her internal audit team. Customer complaints about certain luxury retailers at the plaza. Something about profiling. Something about aggressive managers. The kind of language that danced around what people really meant. Discrimination. Maya didn't believe in micromanaging, but she did believe in accountability. So she did what her grandmother used to do when her boss at the hotel was rude. Show up quietly, watch carefully, and let the facts reveal themselves. She parked in the general garage, took the main escalators, walked store to store without revealing who she was. And most stores treated her just fine. Until she stepped into Coach. Until Sharon Fielding saw her, judged her, grabbed her, and slapped her. In that moment, Maya saw it clearly. This wasn't just about her. It was about the system. And now, that system was about to change. Long before the slap, the judgment had already landed. It started the moment Maya stepped across the threshold of the Coach store. The lighting was warm. The music soft, something acoustic playing in the background. Shelves lined with polished leather bags and wallets, their price tags tucked discreetly out of sight as if to say, if you have to ask, you don't belong. Maya was used to this. The silent scan from behind the counter. The side-eye glance from the sales associate who suddenly stopped folding scarves and started watching her movements a little too closely. The subtle weight of suspicion wrapped in polite indifference. Still, she gave them the benefit of the doubt. She wandered past the display, admiring the structured satchels and new arrivals. She reached toward a limited edition clutch, forest green, pebbled leather, hand-stitched detail. A beautiful piece. She smiled. That's when it began. A young white sales associate, early 20s, peach lip gloss, nervous smile, hurried over with forced cheerfulness. Hi, those bags are part of our premium collection, she said, her voice a touch too loud, a beat too fast. But the outlet line's in the back if you're browsing. Maya raised an eyebrow but didn't answer. The girl gestured toward a table with neon signage and discounted tags. Then she added, they're more affordable. More affordable. Two words that hung in the air like a slap before the real one ever came. Maya nodded slowly, more to herself than to the associate, and continued browsing. Then came the second hit. Not physical, not yet. But deeper. As she picked up the green clutch again, the store manager appeared, like a hawk spotting prey. Sharon Fielding. Stiff shoulders. Tight smile. Thin voice. Can I help you with something? No warmth. No welcome. No professionalism. Just pure territorial energy. Maya politely responded, just browsing. Sharon didn't move. Didn't blink. You're handling a display item, she said. That clutch is worth over $800. Maya smiled again, just enough to be civil. I know. And that was the problem. She knew. And people like Sharon didn't like when someone who looked like Maya knew her worth. Or theirs. It wasn't just the clutch. It was the audacity of touching something she wasn't expected to afford. It was the confidence. The silence. The calm. And that silence, that calm, it was about to unravel everything. Because sometimes racism doesn't wear a hood. It wears a name tag. And a smile. And a clipboard full of loss prevention protocols. And on that day inside that luxury store, it was about to get loud. It happened in less than 2 seconds. One moment, Maya was admiring the stitching on the clutch. The next, Sharon Fielding was storming across the floor like a woman on a mission. A mission built on fear, assumption, and power she thought she had. Young lady, I told you not to touch that again. Sharon's voice cracked across the store like a whip. Heads turned. Maya didn't even get a chance to respond. Sharon reached out and ripped the clutch from her hands, like a mother scolding a child. Then, before anyone could process what was happening, her hand came up and slapped Maya across the face. Open palm. No hesitation. No warning. Just the sound of skin on skin echoing off glass and leather. Time stopped. A few shoppers gasped out loud. One dropped their phone. Another whispered, "Oh my God." And then came the phones. A teenage girl near the window had her camera up in less than 3 seconds. A guy at the register hit record without even blinking. A mom with a toddler clutched her child and pulled out her iPhone with trembling hands. This was no longer a store incident. This was content. Sharon stood there, chest heaving, righteous fury in her voice. Security? I need security at Coach. Now. Maya didn't speak. Her face turned slowly toward Sharon. Her expression unreadable. Not fear. Not rage. Something quieter. Sharper. Like a needle waiting for the right moment to pierce. I've seen this type before, Sharon barked, turning to the crowd. They wander in, pretend to be customers, then try to slip something into their bag. I'm not new to this. That was when the first video hit Twitter. 10 seconds. Shaky footage. But the sound was perfect. The slap. The voice. The accusation. Then came TikTok. The caption, "White manager slaps black shopper at Coach in Atlanta Mall, flushed face, flushed face, flushed face." Within 5 minutes, the hashtag Coach slap trended nationwide. By the time mall security arrived, the clip had over 800,000 views. By hour 1, over 2 million. By dinner, it was on CNN. And still, Maya hadn't said a word. Not yet. Because she knew what Sharon didn't. The internet wasn't the only thing watching now. The entire system was. And it was finally time to answer. Maya didn't flinch. Not when Sharon yelled. Not when she slapped her. Not when a crowd formed like sharks circling blood in the water. She simply adjusted her tote bag over her shoulder, calmly reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out her phone. Matte black. Unbranded. Silent. She unlocked it with her thumbprint and whispered 2 words. Activate Echo. From the outside it looked like a woman calling for backup. But for Maya Brooks that was code. Within 60 seconds, 3 people appeared at the front entrance of the Coach store. Not security. Not mall staff. A woman in a tailored navy pantsuit with a Bluetooth earpiece. A man in a black turtleneck holding an iPad. And a third figure, tall, in a slim gray jacket, instantly recognizable to Maya as her legal liaison, Deshawn. They walked in like they owned the floor. Because technically, they did. The Coach employees went still. Sharon paused mid-rant as the suited woman stepped forward, her heels clicking in sync with the silence that had overtaken the store. She didn't say a word to Sharon. Didn't need to. Instead she looked at Maya. Are you okay, Miss Brooks? The name dropped like a bomb. Sharon blinked. Miss what? Excuse me? Maya finally spoke. Her voice was calm, controlled, but sharp enough to cut steel. This is Deshawn Carter, Senior Counsel for Brooks Capital. The man nodded. Miss Brooks is conducting an unannounced equity audit of this location and others within the Atlantic Grand Plaza property portfolio. The woman in the navy suit added, and I'm here on behalf of PR Containment. You've just slapped the majority owner of this shopping center. While being recorded. From 6 different angles. Sharon took a step back. You can't be serious. This is some kind of prank. Maya tilted her head. No prank. Just poor judgment. Her phone buzzed. Text from her assistant. Footage has reached CNN, MSNBC, and BuzzFeed. We're drafting statement. Another buzz. Mayor's office requesting private call. Says they stand with you. Maya calmly tapped her screen, turned the volume off, and placed the phone in her pocket. Then she looked Sharon in the eye. You thought I was just another woman browsing. Just another problem to be handled. But here's the thing. She leaned in slightly. You just laid hands on the woman who signs the rent checks for this entire building. The air changed. Sharon's face drained of color. Her voice caught in her throat. Even the sales associate behind the counter took a step away from her. Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Because sometimes the loudest sound in the room is the silence after the truth drops. And Maya Brooks had just dropped all of it. The moment hung heavy, like the last breath before a storm breaks. All eyes were on Maya now. The woman Sharon had dismissed just 15 minutes earlier. The woman she'd accused, humiliated, and struck in public. Now stood, still as a mountain, surrounded by lawyers, PR advisors, and power she never saw coming. Sharon's mouth opened but no words came out. I'm sorry, you're what again? She asked, her voice suddenly thin, barely audible. Deshawn stepped forward and handed Sharon a folder. Sleek, white, embossed with a gold seal. She took it with trembling fingers. Inside were the corporate ownership documents, the lease agreement, the holding company registrations, and at the bottom, the signature. Maya T. Brooks, Managing Director, Brooks Capital Holdings. That signature alone represented over $2.7 billion in investments. Sharon's lips moved silently as she read. Her skin had gone pale. A customer whispered from the corner, "Oh damn, she really owns this place?" One of the sales associates took a quiet step away from Sharon. Another began discreetly closing out the register, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Maya remained silent, letting the documents speak for her. But the crowd, they were starting to see her. Not just as a black woman in a hoodie. Not just as some shopper. But as the woman who held the keys to everything around them. And more importantly, as someone who had the patience and presence not to scream, not to retaliate, but to reveal the truth when it mattered most. A truth that shattered every stereotype. Because Maya didn't need to announce herself to command respect. She just needed to stand still long enough for people to recognize what they'd chosen to ignore. It wasn't about proving her worth. She already knew it. It was about forcing the world to confront its bias. Live, on camera, in front of millions. Sharon tried to gather herself. She fumbled through the pages. I didn't know. I didn't recognize. Maya raised a hand, cutting her off gently but firmly. That's the problem, Sharon. You didn't see me. She paused. And worse, you never tried. The silence was no longer awkward. It was the sound of reality settling in. And for the first time, everyone in that Coach store was finally looking at Maya Brooks, not through her clothes or her skin or their assumptions, but with their eyes fully open. By the time Sharon Fielding finished stammering her half-hearted apology, the internet had already issued its verdict. The videos, all 6 angles, had been stitched together by a 19-year-old college student in Brooklyn. She added slow-mo to the slap, captions to Sharon's words, and a freeze frame on Maya's calm, composed face the moment after the strike. She titled it, "Grace Under Fire, the Billionaire You Tried to Erase." It hit 1.2 million views in under an hour. Twitter was ablaze. #Slapgate. #Maya Brooks. #You slapped their owner. Influencers reposted it with fire emojis. Activists called it a masterclass in self-control. Corporate leaders, some from rival firms, some from partners of Brooks Capital, posted statements of support. Even celebrities chimed in. A-list actor Devin Chase tweeted, "This is why we need equity audits. This is why people like Maya Brooks are game changers." Maya didn't comment. She didn't have to. The world was doing it for her. Her assistant, Alana, called from the PR command center in their downtown Atlanta office. "We've had over 200 interview requests. CNN, MSNBC, Good Morning America. Even Oprah's team reached out." Maya, still sitting in the back hallway of the Coach store, rubbed her temple. "Not yet," she said. "Let the story speak first. Then we answer." By 5:30 p.m., Sharon Fielding's name was trending. Not in a good way. Screenshots of her Yelp reviews surfaced. Employees describing her as aggressive, condescending, and weirdly obsessed with loss prevention. Former co-workers posted TikToks recalling Sharon meltdowns and how she once accused a teenage employee of stealing lotion, only to find it in her own purse. Meanwhile, Maya's name was rising across every platform, not just as the victim, but as a force. Old clips of her keynote at Stanford resurfaced. A TED Talk she gave at 28 on silent power hit YouTube's trending page. A Forbes cover from last year, the quiet billionaire who built an empire from the ground up, started making the rounds. And in the comments, people weren't just angry. They were inspired. That's what real power looks like. She didn't just win the moment. She changed the conversation. Representation matters. And this is why. By sundown, the Coach store at Atlantic Grand Plaza had quietly closed for inventory. But everyone knew the truth. It wasn't merchandise they were counting. It was losses, reputation, trust, and the illusion that bias could still hide in plain sight. And while Sharon hid from the public eye, Maya, she was just getting started. The conference room on the 30th floor didn't look like a war zone. But that's exactly what it was about to become. Neutral gray walls. A polished walnut table. Bottled water chilled to perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Atlanta's skyline. Everything about the room said corporate calm. Until Maya Brooks walked in. Behind her, Deshawn, 2 senior advisors from Brooks Capital, and a silent tech assistant live-streaming the session to the firm's legal archive. No press. No crowd. Just facts. At the far end of the table sat Sharon Fielding. She looked smaller. Not physically. But everything about her energy had shrunk. The sharp shoulders were slouched. Her eyes, usually piercing, now darted like she was looking for an escape hatch that didn't exist. Maya didn't sit. She remained standing. Sharon tried first. "Ms. Brooks, I just want to say." Maya raised a hand, cutting her off. Not unkindly, just firmly. "This isn't a space for rehearsed apologies, Sharon. It's a space for truth." Silence. Maya stepped forward, her voice low and measured. The same tone she used in boardrooms when she was about to dismantle a business model, or a lie. "Let me ask you something," she said. "When you saw me walk into your store yesterday, what was your first thought?" Sharon blinked. I don't remember." "Yes, you do," Maya replied, calm as ever. "Because the slap didn't come from confusion. It came from a decision. You looked at me and decided who I was before I ever said a word." Sharon opened her mouth, closed it, then finally whispered, "I thought you didn't belong." There it was. The real answer. Maya nodded slowly. And that's what this is really about. Not one slap. Not one video. But a culture. One that decides in a split second who is worthy, who is dangerous, who deserves access, and who needs to be removed. Sharon looked away, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "But it did," Maya said. "And it always does." She let the weight of that hang in the air. This wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. Confronting the quiet rot that had lived beneath the surface for far too long. Sharon finally asked, "Are you going to fire me?" Maya looked at her evenly. "That depends," she said. "Not on me, but on whether you're willing to unlearn what got you here." The room went still. Because sometimes justice doesn't yell. It whispers, and waits to see if anyone's listening. Maya could have fired Sharon on the spot. No severance. No ceremony. Just a line in an email and a changed security badge. She had every right. The videos, the witnesses, the corporate liability alone would have justified it. But Maya didn't come this far to play small. She didn't build an empire to hand out petty punishments. She believed in something deeper than retribution. She believed in reconstruction. So, when the question of Sharon's future came up again during a private HR meeting later that day, Maya laid out a different plan. "We're not just cleaning house," she said. "We're building something better." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were fire. Sharon sat across from her, pale and silent. This wasn't a second chance. This was a mirror. Maya slid a folder across the table. "This is your new job description," she said. Sharon's brows knit. I thought I was being let go." Maya shook her head. "You're being reassigned. Effective immediately." "To where?" "To the Equity Integration Task Force," Maya said. "You'll be part of a team conducting on-site reviews of customer service and hiring practices at every retail location in this plaza, including Coach." Sharon blinked. "But I caused the problem." "Yes," Maya replied. "And now you're going to help fix it." The room was quiet. Not tense. Not hostile. Just real. Maya continued, "You're not reporting to a corporate VP. You'll be reporting to someone you ignored yesterday, Leah Jenkins, the floor associate you interrupted when she tried to de-escalate. She has a master's in organizational leadership. You never asked." Sharon looked down. "This isn't about humiliating you," Maya added. "This is about forcing the people in power to understand what their power has done. Not through theory. Through work." Sharon swallowed hard. "I don't know if I can." "You can," Maya said. "Because if you want to stay employed in any capacity here, you will." She wasn't cruel about it, but she didn't soften it either. Because grace isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's fierce. Sharon nodded slowly. Not in defeat, but in realization. Maya stood. "One last thing," she said, turning to leave. "The people you harmed, they don't owe you forgiveness. But you owe them effort. Real effort." She paused at the door. "If you want to redeem your legacy, now's the time." And just like that, she walked out. Not with vengeance, but with vision. Because power doesn't mean breaking someone down. Sometimes, it means rebuilding them into something better. The slap was never just about Sharon Fielding. It was about everything behind her. The silence. The structure. The system that allowed someone like her to act with that level of certainty, to assume guilt, to exercise force, to humiliate in public, and believe there would be no consequence. Maya Brooks knew this. That's why, the day after the confrontation, she didn't just meet with HR. She called every store manager in the Atlantic Grand Plaza to a closed-door session. No press. No optics. Just truth. Standing at the front of the room, Maya didn't give a speech. She gave a diagnosis. "What happened yesterday wasn't an isolated incident," she said, her voice echoing across the conference hall. "It was a symptom of a sickness in our system." She paused, locking eyes with the room. "A sickness that's gone untreated for too long." Some looked away. Others nodded slowly. Then she dropped the bombshell. "As of this quarter, all retail tenants operating within Brooks Capital Properties, whether luxury or budget, will be required to implement an anti-bias compliance audit. Conducted independently. Repeated annually. And if they fail to comply, they will lose their lease." A few gasped. One manager's jaw literally dropped. Maya didn't blink. "There will also be a mandatory racial equity training, not a 30-minute slideshow with coffee and donuts. Real education. Real accountability. And every single leadership role must complete it before bonuses are issued." This wasn't about diversity panels or photo ops. This was structural. One by one, hands went up. Questions about logistics, enforcement, resistance. Maya answered each one like a CEO who had come to play chess, not checkers. "This isn't about making people comfortable," she said. "It's about making sure no one else has to go through what I did, just to prove they belong." Then she closed the meeting with a simple line that would later go viral on every social platform. "You don't fix a broken machine by polishing one part. You rebuild the whole damn engine." By that evening, Brooks Capital's new equity policy was headline news. Retail chains across the country called requesting a copy. Other malls followed suit. Even Wall Street took notice. Maya wasn't trying to go viral. She was trying to go deep. Because it was never about a single slap. It was about breaking the system that made the slap feel justified. And building one where no one has to be slapped to be seen. Sharon Fielding didn't disappear. She didn't vanish into some cushy PR-crafted exit. She stayed. And that surprised everyone. 3 weeks after the slap, she walked into the first session of the Brooks Equity Rehabilitation Program, held in a modest, sunlit room just down the hall from the Coach store where it all began. No blazer. No heels. No name tag. Just a notebook, a pen, and a face that looked like it had finally run out of excuses. This wasn't punishment. It was education, exposure, accountability. She sat in a circle of chairs with other employees, managers, and even security guards from around the plaza. People of different races, backgrounds, ages. Some of them she had ignored. A few she had dismissed. 1 or 2 had filed complaints against her in the past. And now she had to listen. Not with her mouth. Not with her title. But with her presence. Maya wasn't there that first day. She didn't need to be. This wasn't her redemption to deliver. It was Sharon's to earn. The program wasn't easy. There were stories that made Sharon cry. Videos that made her squirm. Moments when the mirror felt unbearable. Like when a black associate from Sephora described how her manager followed her into the restroom just to check if she was really working. Or when a Latino janitor recalled being called one of the good ones, and how that compliment burned more than any insult ever could. Week after week, Sharon sat through it, took notes, asked questions, said nothing when she felt defensive, spoke only when she finally understood. By week 6 she was different. Not perfectly different, but aware. She started checking in with staff she'd never noticed, volunteered to shadow workers in positions she once looked down on, even stepped back from leadership roles she knew she hadn't earned with integrity. The most powerful moment? When she stood in front of the same floor team at Coach and said, voice trembling, "I used to think being in charge meant being right. But now I know, it means being responsible. I can't erase what I did, but I can make sure it never happens again. Not on my watch." There were no standing ovations. No forgiveness speeches. Just a quiet nod from a young black cashier, who finally felt seen. Because a second chance isn't about forgetting the past. It's about proving you're not willing to repeat it. By the time the dust settled, Maya Brooks wasn't just a headline. She was a blueprint. Not just for justice, but for what comes after justice. At the closing ceremony of the Atlantic Grand Equity Initiative, Maya stood in front of a crowd of nearly 300 executives, employees, reporters, and community members. No stage. No spotlight. Just her, a microphone, and the kind of silence that means people are actually listening. She didn't talk about the slap. Not directly. She talked about her grandmother. A housekeeper who used to come home with sore hands and smile anyway. She taught me that power, Maya said, isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who shows up even when no one is watching. The room was still. Then Maya looked up and said the words that would go viral for the right reasons. Real power isn't just about opening doors for yourself. It's about holding them open long enough for someone else to walk through. That was it. The future wasn't going to be built on punishments and press releases. It was going to be built by people who were willing to sit in uncomfortable rooms, to hear things that sting, to grow in public, and to take responsibility not just for what they did, but for what they allowed. Maya launched the Open Door Fellowship that same day, a mentorship and leadership pipeline for underrepresented retail workers looking to move into corporate roles. Funded by Brooks Capital. Supported by over 40 partner brands. Sharon Fielding applied to be a volunteer mentor. She was accepted. Not because Maya owed her anything, but because Maya believed in the ripple effect of redemption, when it's real, when it's earned, when it's sustained. And now, Coach stores across the country are implementing Maya's audit model. Other malls are replicating the equity structure. And Sharon? She leads a monthly workshop called What I Didn't Know Until I Had To, because sometimes the people who were part of the problem can become part of the solution, if we give them the tools, the time, and the challenge to rise. So the next time someone asks, what difference can one person really make? Just say, ask Maya Brooks. She didn't just change the conversation. She changed the culture.